Hi, this is our video lesson for today's Writing 1 class. So we're going to revisit the issue of parallel structure, which we have had a lesson about earlier this semester. But we're going to look at more complicated sentences this time, rather than the simpler sentences that we looked at before. So remember what parallel structure is about. What it means is that when we have a list of things in a sentence, also called items in a series is the same thing as a list of things items in a series, a list of things. So when we have items in a series or a list of things in a sentence, there's a comma rule that we have to observe, and we have to make sure that we have composed the sentence using parallel structure. That means that grammatically, some important elements of the things that are in the list have to be the same. So if one of them's a noun, the rest have to be nouns. If one's a verb, the rest have to be verbs. If one's a certain kind of verb, the rest have to be that same kind of verb. If one is a phrase of a certain kind, the others have to be phrases of the same kind. If one is a clause of a certain kind, the others have to be clauses of the same kind. So just to refresh our memory, going back to what we talked about the first time we had a lesson on parallel structure, here's a simple example. So it says, doctors say I should run, swim, and go walking. So there's a list of things in this sentence, isn't there? So first of all, what are the things the doctors say the speaker should do? Run, swim, and go walking. So there's a list of things. Now, first of all, we're not going to focus on it this time, but when we have at least 3 or more than 3 items in that list, we have to put commas. We have to divide them with commas. Comma after each one, including the one before the and, which we talked about at some length in the first lesson. So these 3 things in the list all have to be the same grammatical structures. So here we have a verb, just a simple verb, no ing, no ed. Here we have a verb, simple verb, no ing or ed. But look at this one. This one has a helping verb, or it's actually got 2 verbs in the verb. It's a verb phrase. It's more than one word. And it's got ing in the form of the verb. So somehow these all have to be the same grammatical structure. So I can fix this fairly easily by taking out the go and taking out the ing. Now I have doctors say I should run, swim, and walk. Run, swim, and walk are all the same form of verb, simple one-word verbs. Okay? So we talked about that last time. But this time we're going to think about the same thing, but with longer, more complex or complicated sentences than we had before. So here's a much more complicated sentence. It says, many times during the night, the woman had to refill the humidifier, adjust the temperature, and hold her crying child until he stopped crying. All right, now we have a list of things in this sentence. There are 3 things that the woman had to do many times during the night. Many times during the night, she had to refill the humidifier, adjust the temperature, and hold her crying child until he stopped crying. So these 3 things that I put in red here, those are the things that are in the list. Make that blue. Now, 2 things. We have to make sure we're using commas in the right place. So after each of the things in the list, there has to be a comma. Refill the humidifier, comma, adjust the temperature, comma, hold her crying child. So remember, we have to put a comma after each one, including the one before the and. Now, we're not going to put a comma after the last one here because, as we've learned in other lessons, this is a subordinate clause, and the main clause comes before the subordinate clause, so there would not be a comma there. That's from other lessons. And we also want to put a comma here because, as we studied in other lessons, this is an introductory phrase, so we want to put a comma after it. All right, so let's take a look at how these are parallel. Each of the verbs at the beginning is the same kind of verb: refill, adjust, and hold. They're all the same simple one-word verbs. They don't have helping verbs in front of them. They're not verb phrases. Meaning they don't have more than one word that makes up the verb. They don't have INGs or EDs. They're all the same kind of verb. Now, it's that verb at the beginning that has to be the same. Sometimes there can be differences in the rest of the phrases that are in the list. These are phrases: refill the humidifier, adjust the temperature, hold her crying child. They're phrases because, remember, a phrase is a group of words without a subject and a predicate. So we have 3 phrases in this bigger sentence that have to be parallel. So it's the verb at the front, at the beginning of the phrase, even though in this case, the rest of the phrases are approximately the same. We have an article, and a possessive pronoun that are all sort of the same. But here we have an adjective modifying child. We have a noun, and a noun. So don't worry too much about the rest of the sentence, but this verb at the beginning they have to be parallel. They have to be the same grammatical structure. Okay, we're going to try some of the, we're going to end this video, then come back and try some of the exercises on the worksheet for today. All right? Okay, see ya.